ever wondered where all these viruses came from? I mean, they've been around for decades. In fact, the first computer virus was written in 1983 by one guy in his garage, and it all started with one single event that forever changed the course of history. So, here is the story of the very first computer virus. It all started in 1974 when two guys at MIT were messing around in the computer lab and discovered something incredible. They found out that you could use a specific sequence of commands to let your program jump over parts of code that it normally wouldn't be able to jump over. At the time, programmers wrote their programs in a language called assembly language. Assembly language uses mnemonics or codes like move, add, and jump to perform different actions. But if you wanted to skip over some lines of code, you would have to write out every single line until you got to the part that you wanted to skip over. This took a lot of time and effort, and programmers were always looking for ways to make their code more efficient. So in 1974, two dudes figured out this trick. They discovered that if you wrote a special command in assembly language that told the computer to jump over a certain number of bytes, the computer would actually do it. This discovery was pretty big because it meant that programmers could finally start creating programs that did more than just sit there and blink. They could create programs that could manipulate data in memory in new and interesting ways. And one of the first people to learn about this discovery was a programmer named Bob Thomas. Bob was working for a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, which made many. He learned about the whole jump over thing while he was working on a project to improve the efficiency of his company as software. But once Bob knew about it, he immediately saw the potential for mischief. You see, the computers that Bob was working on had a very limited amount of memory, which meant that programs had to be very careful about how they used it. If a program used up too much memory, it would cause the whole system to crash. Now, back in the early 80s, programmers didn't really think about things like cybersecurity because they just didn't think that anyone would actually try to hack into their system. They thought that their programs were safe as long as they didn't use too much memory. But Bob Thomas was thinking differently. He was thinking, what if someone actually wanted to mess with your program? What if they could somehow make it use up all of your memory so that it couldn't work anymore? Well, the answer, of course, was yeah. The problem is that no one knew how to do that until Bob Thomas came along. You see, by using that jump over trick that he learned in 19... Bob was able to create a program that would find any unprotected areas in memory and then go ahead and fill them up with junk data. Now, this wasn't exactly a virus. A virus needs to be able to replicate itself in order to spread. But Bob's program was kind of like a proof of concept. It showed everyone that it was possible to create a program that could find unprotected areas in memory and fill them up with junk data. And before long, someone else came along who wanted to take things to the next level. His name was Fred Cohen. Fred was a computer scientist who worked at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. He was one of the first people to ever receive an email. And he was also one of the first people to ever send an email with attachments. And in 1983, Fred decided to use his skills to create the world's first computer virus. Fred was inspired by Bob Thomas's work, but he wanted to create a virus that was more than just a proof of concept. He wanted to create a virus that could actually replicate itself. He believed that this could be done by writing a program that could infect other programs by replacing them with copies of itself. This would allow the virus to spread to other computers by simply being copied to a floppy disk and then inserted into another machine. In order to do this, Fred created a program called the Creeper virus. It was the first computer virus that could infect other programs by replacing them with copies of itself. And it all started with one single event. On July 2nd, 1983, Fred uploaded the Creeper virus to the ARPANET, which was the precursor to the internet, and it immediately began infecting other computers on the network. At first, people were confused about what was happening. They would open up a file and it would say Creeper virus and then it would disappear. People were also starting to get angry because the virus was causing chaos in their networks. Some people even tried to fight back against the virus, but it was too late. The creeper virus had already infected too many computers and it was spreading too fast. As the virus spread throughout the ARPANET, it infected more and more computers. And eventually it became clear that there was no way to stop it. The only thing that people could do was to try to remove the virus from their own computers. But even that was difficult because the virus had infected so many different types of programs. The creeper virus caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. But it also taught them a valuable lesson about the importance of cybersecurity. Before the creeper virus, most programmers didn't worry about things like viruses and hacking. They just assumed that their programs were safe as long as they didn't use too much memory or leave any backdoors for others to exploit. But after the creeper virus, programmers had to start thinking differently. They had to start thinking about the possibility that someone might actually want to harm their programs. For example, programmers had to start thinking about ways to protect their programs from unauthorized access. They also had to start thinking about ways to detect and remove viruses from their systems. These concerns led to the creation of many new tools and technologies that are still being used today. For example, the creeper virus led to the development of the first antivirus programs. These programs were designed to detect and remove viruses from a system, and they quickly became essential for anyone who used a computer. The creeper virus also led to the development of new ways to protect computer systems from unauthorized access. For example, programmers began to use encryption to protect sensitive data. They also began to use firewalls to control the flow of traffic into and out of a system. These security measures have become standard practice in the computer industry, and they continue to evolve as new threats emerge. But despite all the negative effects that the creeper virus had, it also had one positive effect. It led to the creation of the International Journal of Computer Virology, which is a peer-reviewed academic journal that publishes research on computer viruses and other malicious code. The journal was founded in 1989 by Frederick Cohen, who was the same guy who wrote the creeper virus. He created the journal because he wanted to provide a forum for research. He also wanted to create a resource for people who were interested in learning more about computer viruses. Today, the International Journal of Computer Virology is one of the leading journals in the field. It publishes cutting-edge research on all aspects of computer viruses and malicious code. The journal has played a key role in advancing our understanding of computer viruses and has helped to develop new ways to protect against them. After seeing what his virus could do, Fred Cohen actually asked the U.S. government to help him track down and remove the creeper virus from the ARPANET. He felt guilty about the damage that his virus had caused, and he wanted to make things right. However, the government wasn't interested in helping him. They didn't see the creeper virus as a big deal, and they didn't want to waste their resources on it. So, Fred was left with no choice but to go rogue. He started sending messages to all the people he knew in the computer industry, asking them to help him track down and remove the creeper virus. And to his surprise, people actually listened. Many computer experts took Fred's request seriously and began searching their own systems for the creeper virus. Eventually, they were able to track down and remove the virus from most of the computers it had infected. However, the creeper virus wasn't completely removed from the internet. There were a few isolated cases of it popping up here and there over the years, but for the most part, it was contained. Fred Cohen continued to work in the field of computer security for many years. He developed several new techniques for detecting and removing viruses, and he also helped to develop some of the first antivirus programs. So there you have it. Video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.